Hi everyone, my name is Melissa and this is the Vulnerable Populations Project for Nursing 440 at California State University, San Marcos. So we are discussing vulnerable populations and what makes them vulnerable. Starting at the top, we have poverty, then we have mental illness, addiction, infectious disease, migrant health, rural living, violence, and homelessness. These are all the vulnerable populations I will be covering today. And on the outside, we have different reasons of what makes them vulnerable, starting with lack of social support on the outside. If you notice, each of the vulnerable populations have a number associated with them right next to them. For example, poverty has a number 1, mental illness has a number 2. This is the number that I'm going to use to represent them on the reason that makes them more vulnerable. So with lack of social support, this is our first one that contains all of the vulnerable populations. They can have a lack of social support for a variety of different reasons, whether it be lack of access to community resources, maybe family is not involved anymore for whatever reason, or just lack of that social support in their area wherever they are. The next one is environmental risk, which includes things such as tobacco smoke, like having maybe like secondhand smoke, or maybe they do smoke, and also poor sanitation, such as you would see in more poor areas, maybe poor housing, as well as lead exposure, which would also be found in poor housing. The next one is safety risk. This includes things like traffic hazards and family violence. And then there's communication issues, which actually could be a problem with a lot of these could be a problem with any population, whether it be vulnerable or non-vulnerable. But the main ones you might see in these vulnerable populations would be mental illness, because maybe their head's just not in the right place to communicate their needs, or maybe they don't want to communicate their needs. And then also with migrant health, possibly their first language is not English, or maybe they don't speak any English, so there could be a communication barrier there. The next reasoning here is poor dental health. This could be lack of access to means to take care of the good dental work, or maybe it's just not a norm for that type of population, such as homelessness or mental illness. Again, their head might not be in the right place, addiction, things like that. And then another one that has all the risks, all the vulnerable populations attached to it, is a delay in care. So this could be lack of access to maybe transportation to get to the care. It could be a delay in care because they feel that they don't have the means to pay for the care, or they feel like they just don't have that ability to go seek out care. The next one on this list is fear or stigma, which any of these vulnerable populations really could feel. They are a vulnerable population. There could be stigma attached to them. They could have the fear of being seen as differently or being treated differently, things like that. And then another one is malnutrition or poor nutrition, whether their head's not in the right place to feed themselves properly, like mental illness and addiction, or maybe they don't have the means to buy the proper nutrition, so they could be eating very cheaply or not eating at all if they don't have the money for it. The next one on this list is access to care being limited. So it goes along, it's kind of like delay in care, but access to care runs more along the lines of things like with rural living, how the nearest treatment facility might be super far away, or they aren't able to get treatment at a certain place, or they think they can't get treatment at a certain place, things like that. And then lastly, this also contains most all of the things here, all except for infectious disease, but treatment compliance. So treatment compliance could also be because of money problems, financial issues, for expensive treatments, or just the fact that treatments cost money in general. It could be your head's not in the right place to do the treatment, or maybe you don't feel that you need the treatment, or just don't really understand the importance of a certain treatment. And then with migrant health, it could be a cultural barrier. That's why it's so important to be assessing those cultural beliefs and making sure that the treatment is proper for the patient. Rural living, they're far away from maybe pharmacies or access to care or access to those treatments, things like that. Violence can be an issue. It can get in the way of treatment. And then homelessness is another one of those access financial issues. So I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and I hope you have a good day.